What if the walk you take your dog on every single day, the one that feels completely normal to you, is secretly pushing their body toward a medical emergency? Before we go further, hit that like button so this video reaches more dog owners before the summer heat peaks. Subscribe if you want more videos that could genuinely protect your pet. And share this with anyone you know who walks their dog in the afternoon sun. It might save a life. Here's something most pet owners never think about. A warm, sunny day that feels pleasant to you can feel like an entirely different world to your dog. You put the leash on, step outside, and 20 minutes later, your dog's tongue is hanging out further than usual, curling at the edges like a spoon, their breathing turning into a heavy, rattling pant that sounds almost mechanical. Then, without warning, their legs give out, and they collapse right there on the sidewalk, in front of you, with no clear warning at all. I'm Dr. Sarah Bennett, and in my clinic, this scene repeats itself constantly, every single summer. Panicked owners rushing through the door carrying a dog that just collapsed on what seemed like an ordinary walk, one they'd done 100 times before without any issue. And almost every single time, the owner had absolutely no idea anything was wrong until it was already too late to prevent it easily. This isn't about scaring you away from summer walks, and it definitely isn't about making you feel guilty for something you never knew to watch for. It's about making sure you truly understand what's happening inside your dog's body during hot weather, so a simple afternoon outside never quietly turns into an emergency room visit. Today, I'm going to show you a genuinely simple trick, something that takes less than a minute at your front door, that can measurably lower your dog's body temperature before they've even stepped outside into the heat. We're also going to break down a few dangerous myths, including a couple of helpful habits that many pet owners swear by, that can actually push a dog closer to collapse instead of further away from it. Let's start with the biology, because understanding this one piece of information changes everything about how you'll think about walking your dog from now on. When humans get hot, we sweat across nearly our entire body, and that sweat evaporating in the breeze cools us down remarkably efficiently. Dogs simply don't have that advantage built into their biology. Their fur covers almost their entire body, and they only have a small number of functional sweat glands, located specifically inside their paw pads, rather than spread across their skin. That means dogs rely almost entirely on one single mechanism to regulate their temperature: panting. When a dog pants, they pull in cooler air from outside, moisture inside their mouth and lungs evaporates, and they exhale the warmed air back out. This system works reasonably well under normal conditions, but here's the problem that catches so many owners off guard. On a genuinely hot or humid day, the air going into their lungs is nearly the same temperature as the air coming back out. Their entire built-in cooling system essentially stalls out completely. Their internal temperature, which normally sits around 101 degrees, can climb rapidly toward 105, 106, even 109 degrees in a surprisingly short window of time. Once it reaches that extreme range, the proteins inside their brain and vital organs begin to physically break down. This is heat stroke, and it can happen far faster than most people would ever expect, sometimes within just 15 or 20 minutes of intense activity and serious heat. So how exactly do we help their body handle this better before they ever step outside the front door? Let me walk you through the trick I personally recommend to every single pet owner who comes through my clinic during summer months. This takes about 60 seconds and costs you absolutely nothing beyond a washcloth and some cool water. Remember how I mentioned dogs have functioning sweat glands specifically in their paws? We're going to help those particular glands do their job far more efficiently than they normally would on their own. About 5 minutes before heading out for a walk, grab a washcloth, soak it thoroughly in cool water, and gently wipe down all 4 of your dog's paw pads until they're visibly damp, not soaking wet, just noticeably cool and moist to the touch. Then take that same damp cloth and wipe the inside of their armpits, along with the bare skin around their groin and inner thighs, where fur tends to be thinner. Why those specific spots on the body? Because 2 major blood vessels, the brachial artery near the front legs and the femoral artery near the back legs, run extremely close to the surface of the skin in those exact areas, with very little fur or fat to insulate them from outside temperature changes. When you apply cool moisture directly to those spots, you're essentially cooling the blood itself as it circulates continuously through the body. Here's where the real magic happens. The moment you step outside, and even a light breeze hits those damp paw pads, armpits, and inner thighs, evaporation kicks in almost immediately, pulling heat directly out of the bloodstream in the process. It works almost exactly the same way human sweat evaporates off bare skin to cool us down. This one small 60-second habit can help keep your dog noticeably cooler throughout an entire walk, sometimes by several full degrees, all from something that genuinely takes less time than tying your own shoes before heading out the door. Now that we've covered how to help your dog's body handle heat more effectively from the very start, let's talk about a mistake I see constantly in my clinic, one that well-meaning owners make with absolutely the best intentions in the world. Picture a backyard barbecue on a hot afternoon. A dog is panting heavily in the summer heat, so someone grabs a thick beach towel, soaks it in cold water, and drapes it directly over the dog's back like a cooling blanket. It genuinely feels like the right thing to do in the moment. Unfortunately, it is not, and understanding why matters. As a veterinarian, I need you to understand something important here. Laying a heavy wet towel over a hot dog's back can actually trap heat inside their body instead of helping release it outward. Here's the physics behind exactly why this happens. A dog's body naturally tries to release built-up heat upward and outward through their coat and into the surrounding air. When you cover that coat completely with a heavy wet towel, you block that heat from escaping at all, essentially sealing it in like a lid on a pot. Within just a few minutes, the dog's own rising body heat warms up the water sitting in that towel, turning what started as a cooling tool into something closer to a steam blanket, trapping heat directly against their skin instead of pulling it safely away. The correct approach is almost the exact opposite of what most people instinctively try. Lay the wet towel flat on the ground instead, and gently encourage your dog to lie down directly on top of it. A dog's belly has very little fur covering it, so their bare skin makes direct contact with the cool, damp towel underneath them, letting heat transfer safely downward into the towel and the ground beneath, while their back remains fully exposed to open air where excess heat can escape naturally and freely. Remember it this way: dog on top of the towel, never towel draped on top of the dog. There's another common mistake tied closely to this same instinct to help too quickly, and it involves something almost every single owner reaches for without thinking twice: ice-cold water straight from the fridge. You come back from a genuinely hot walk, your dog is panting hard and clearly uncomfortable, and you rush to fill their bowl with ice-cold water, maybe even tossing in a few extra ice cubes for good measure because it feels generous and kind. It feels like exactly what a hot, exhausted, thirsty dog needs in that exact moment. But here's what actually tends to happen physiologically. A dog that's overheated and desperate for relief will often gulp water down as fast as their body physically allows. That rapid, frantic gulping pulls in large amounts of air along with the water itself, and combined with the sudden shock of extreme cold hitting their stomach, this combination can significantly increase the risk of a dangerous condition where the stomach fills rapidly with air and actually twists on itself, cutting off blood supply entirely. This condition is a genuine life-threatening emergency, and it is frequently fatal without immediate surgical intervention. On top of that added risk, a heavily panting dog gulping too quickly can even accidentally inhale a whole ice cube and choke on it entirely. The safer approach here is refreshingly simple. Offer room temperature water instead of anything ice cold, cool to the touch but never freezing. This naturally encourages your dog to drink calmly and steadily, rather than triggering that frantic, dangerous gulping reflex we just discussed. And if you're wondering whether ice itself is somehow the real enemy here, it genuinely isn't. Letting your dog slowly lick an ice cube on their own terms, or enjoy a slowly melting frozen treat, is perfectly safe and can even be a fun way to help them cool down gradually. The actual danger comes specifically from gulping large amounts of extremely cold water too quickly all at once, not from the presence of ice in general. If you're finding this information genuinely useful so far, drop a comment below letting me know what breed your dog is. It helps me understand exactly who's watching and what specific advice might help your dog most in future videos. We've now covered both towels and water, so let's talk about something local groomers here requests for constantly every single summer, the full body shave down that so many owners assume will help. Every year without fail, owners bring in dogs with thick double coats, breeds like Huskies, Golden Retrievers, and Australian Shepherds, and specifically ask for a complete buzz cut down to the skin, genuinely believing it will help their dog stay noticeably cooler through the hottest months. I want to be very direct and clear about this particular point. If your dog has a double coat, shaving them down to bare skin during summer can actually work directly against them, not for them, no matter how counterintuitive that sounds at first. Double-coated dogs have two distinct, separate layers of fur working together, a coarser outer layer known as guard hairs, and a much softer, insulating undercoat living underneath that outer layer. In winter, that undercoat naturally thickens considerably to help trap body warmth against the cold. As the seasons shift toward summer, dogs naturally shed much of that heavy undercoat on their own, but the outer guard hairs remain in place through summer for a very good biological reason. That outer coat actively reflects harsh sunlight away from the skin underneath, and it creates a layer of shaded, insulated air sitting between the sun and their actual body, functioning almost exactly like insulation built into the walls of a house to keep interior temperatures stable. Shave that protective outer layer away completely, and you expose bare, sensitive skin directly to intense summer sunlight with absolutely no natural defense remaining. Not only does this create a real risk of painful, serious sunburn developing quickly, it also strips away their natural defense against rising ambient temperature altogether, meaning their core body heat can climb noticeably faster during any physical activity than it would otherwise. Instead of shaving, the better approach by far is regular, thorough brushing using an undercoat rake or a proper de-shedding tool consistently throughout the summer months, removing any trapped dead fur so air can circulate freely close to the skin, while still leaving that protective outer coat completely intact to shield them from direct sun exposure. Even when you do absolutely everything right and follow every piece of advice we've covered so far, accidents can still happen unexpectedly. A game of fetch runs a little too long on a warmer afternoon than planned, or the temperature climbs faster outside than anyone realized while you were out enjoying the day. So let's talk honestly about how to actually recognize real trouble before it quietly becomes a genuine emergency situation. Dogs are loyal to an almost heartbreaking fault. Many will keep chasing a ball or keep walking alongside you simply because they desperately want to please you, without ever clearly showing an obvious sign that something is seriously wrong internally until it's almost too late to easily reverse. That's exactly why learning these specific warning signs matters so profoundly for every dog owner. The first sign worth watching closely for is what veterinarians sometimes call spoon tongue. Normal, healthy panting looks relaxed and easy, with the tongue hanging out comfortably without much tension. In the early stages of genuine heat stress, the tongue stretches out noticeably further than usual, and the very tip of it begins to curl upward and visibly widen, closely resembling the rounded shape of a soup spoon. This physical change happens because the body is desperately trying to maximize available surface area for evaporative cooling in a losing battle against rising internal heat. The second sign is something every single dog owner should genuinely learn to check regularly: gum color and something called capillary refill time. Gently lift your dog's upper lip with your fingers and take a close look at their gums underneath. Healthy, properly cooled gums appear a bright, healthy bubblegum pink color. As heat stress continues worsening, gums can gradually shift toward a deep brick red color, or even a dull, muddy grayish purple as blood circulation itself begins to genuinely struggle throughout the body. Press one finger firmly against the gum tissue until that spot turns visibly white, then release your finger and count carefully how long it takes for that pink color to fully return. In a healthy, well-regulated dog, this typically takes only 1 to 2 seconds at most. In a dog actively experiencing heat exhaustion, that same process can stretch out to 4 or 5 full seconds, a clear and unmistakable signal that something is genuinely wrong internally. The third major sign to watch for is confusion or noticeable disorientation. If your dog seems to stare blankly when you call their name directly, or stumbles around like they've genuinely lost their sense of balance entirely, this is not ordinary tiredness from a long walk. It can indicate that the brain itself is already being seriously affected by dangerously rising internal body temperature, and it means you have already entered a genuine medical emergency requiring immediate action. If you notice the spoon-shaped tongue, dark or unusually slow refilling gums, or confused, unsteady stumbling, you likely have somewhere between 5 and 10 critical minutes to meaningfully change the eventual outcome. Here's exactly what to do, laid out clearly, step by step, without panic. First, get your dog completely out of direct sunlight immediately, moving them into shade or an air-conditioned space if one is available anywhere nearby. Second, use plain room temperature water, deliberately not ice-cold, poured gently and steadily over their belly, their armpits, and the back of their neck, working to lower their temperature gradually without shocking their already stressed system. Third, prioritize getting real airflow moving directly across that now wet skin. If you're in a car, point the air conditioning vents directly onto their damp belly and armpits while heading immediately to the nearest emergency veterinary clinic without delay. Avoid wrapping them tightly in blankets or towels during this critical step. You specifically want that air moving freely and continuously across wet skin to maximize evaporative cooling throughout the drive. Fourth, call ahead to the emergency clinic while you're actively driving there, letting them know clearly that your dog is showing signs of heat stroke and giving them your estimated arrival time so the entire team can have everything fully prepared the moment you walk through their doors. Heat stroke is genuinely frightening to witness firsthand. There's no way around that honest truth. But it's also almost entirely preventable once you truly know what to look for in advance and exactly what to do the moment something starts going wrong. With everything we've walked through together today, you're no longer the owner who might accidentally miss the warning signs hiding in plain sight. You're someone who genuinely understands how their dog's body handles rising heat, and exactly what steps to take if something does go wrong despite your best efforts. Think honestly about everything you now have sitting in your toolkit after watching this. The 60-second paw and armpit trick you can do before you even leave the house each day. A clear understanding of why that double coat should stay fully intact rather than get shaved away out of good intentions. Knowing confidently to skip the wet towel draped over their back and the ice-cold water bowl, offering genuinely safer alternatives instead without any guesswork involved. And most importantly of all, knowing exactly how to check those gums, count that capillary refill time, and recognize the earliest silent signs of trouble long before your dog ever reaches the point of visible collapse. Summer should still be something you and your dog genuinely look forward to together, full of walks, play, and shared memories rather than constant anxiety. The goal here was never to make you afraid of the sunshine. It was to make sure you walk out that front door every single day fully prepared, informed, and quietly confident that you'll catch the warning signs early, long before they ever become a genuine emergency. So here's what I'd love for you to do today. Go find your dog right now, gently lift their lip, and check what healthy gum color and refill time actually looks like for them specifically, so you'll instantly recognize the difference if something ever changes. Let me know in the comments what breed you have and whether they've got a thick double coat you'll be brushing out this summer. I read every single comment and genuinely love hearing about your dogs. If this video gave you something worth remembering, hit that like button so it reaches more pet parents before the next heat wave arrives. Subscribe for more videos exactly like this one, and share it with someone whose dog could use this information today. Here's to a safe, joyful summer with the dog who trusts you completely to keep them safe.